Should ask the Minister for Transport if he will take or she will take measures with the struggling hauliers companies at the moment and to see what reliefs that can be given. And I say that, Minister, in light of at the moment the government out of a litre of diesel at 170 takes €1.10, and if you look at it 16, 17 months ago at the price it was at, the difference the government takes now on a litre of diesel is 40 cents more than 14, 15 months ago. So there is room for government to give an allowance because it's food that's hauled, be it in city, be it exported, or be it throughout rural Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy. And again, I know this issue is of huge concern, and I know that's why it's been raised here today. So just to say, I'm very aware of increased prices at petrol and diesel pumps over recent weeks. This is an international trend. Wholesale energy prices have increased significantly following rises in international oil and gas prices and a post-lockdown surge in energy demand. And while the trajectory of the global energy market is not within our control, indications are that this current spike will abate over the coming months. My colleague, Minister for Finance, sets policy in relation to tax and excise duties on fuel, and the only increase in this year's budget in this regard related to the already planned increase in the carbon tax. At a time when the eyes of the world are on what governments in developed economies like ours can do to address climate change, our carbon tax represents an important contribution to that effort. The diesel rebate scheme partially insulates the licensed haulage and bus sector from such fuel price increases. Under the diesel rebate scheme, qualifying road transport operators can apply for a repayment of part of the mineral oil tax paid on auto diesel purchased in the state. And while this current spike in fuel prices is likely to be short-lived, it's important to take this opportunity to take stock of our dependence on imported fossil fuels in the transport sector. And the new Climate Action Plan, which will be published later today, will help reduce our reliance on these fuels and to transit to greener, renewable energy sources for transport. Electrification of road transport is key, and a comprehensive suite of measures is available to EV drivers, including purchase grants for private car owners, taxi drivers, VRT relief, reduced tolls, home charger grants, favourable motor and BIK tax rates. I know it's not related in relation to HGV drivers, but the plan also commits to increasing biofuel blend rates, and these are transitionary fuels. They serve to provide time for those sectors, such as the haulage sector, to invest in new greener technology. And a grant scheme, as I mentioned earlier, was launched in March to assist the purchase of alternatively fuelled heavy-duty vehicles, and the take-up of the scheme was excellent, and it does demonstrate the level of interest in this sector to make the transition.
Thank you, Minister.
Minister, with due respects to you, whatever civil servant wrote that doesn't know a lot about the transport industry. First of all, there's no lorries in Ireland or in Europe at the moment. A lorry, an articulated lorry that's running on electric. So, like, just whoever done that needs to go back and look. Second of all, in the line of gas, and Deputy O'Rourke pointed it out earlier, that gas now is dearer than diesel. And it's 18,000 to transfer your lorry from diesel to gas. And as Deputy O'Donoghue pointed out, there's a new Euro 6 engine which has drastically reduced emissions, and we should be looking at that to help the haulage industry. And when you talk about international prices of fuel, yes, you're right, they have gone up. But every time they go up, it's 35% they get out of every euro. 65% the government gets, so it's like a hen clocking. The more that goes up there, the more you're going to get more money for a government. And ye have 40 cents more got out of the same product in a year because the price has changed, and that room is there. It's not for the hauliers. Let's be clear on this. It is for the ordinary people, because the food of Ireland is brought around on lorries throughout this country.
Deputy, I take your point that the HGV sector is reliant on fossil fuels. I'm acutely aware of that. And what we are trying to do as part of this transition is to ensure that we are putting in place supports through the diesel rebate scheme at the moment. I mentioned the alternatively fuelled heavy-duty vehicle grant, which had a huge uptake from the sector, and it shows the interest there. We're also co-funding 3 research projects with Trinity College Dublin and University College Cork, focusing on decarbonising the freight sector. This is not going to be easy. It is not going to happen next week. I'm very aware of that. But we are working right across government to ensure that we are, number one, reducing our emissions and ensuring that we are protecting the sector also. And part of that is that 10-year haulage strategy, the first of its kind in Ireland. And now is the time that I think people need to, and they are, the sector is feeding in positively and constructively to that sector, relaying their needs and what they need to do in order to help support their sector going into the future.
Yeah, Minister, I welcome what you have said in the line of research being done, and I understand all that. But the reality of it is now the crisis is. The people that moved from diesel to gas, and yes, there was a grant, and I'd be the first to admit that, but the volume of money involved is probably 17 or 18,000. They now are paying more than if they had diesel. That's fact. Second of all, what I am saying to you is there is 40 cent of a difference between what you were taking in revenue last year and this year. And when you're in a crisis in shifting goods around the country with the haulage sector, there is room for manoeuvre, because if the price of diesel hadn't gone up internationally, you wouldn't have the 40 cent extra. So what you never had, you never wanted. And what I am saying to you is, for the time being, until we get these electric vehicles wherever they are in the horizon that's going to ship it around the country, or until we get gas down at a normal price, will the government, as an immediate step, and I know you said you cannot do a lot of these things in the short term, and I understand that fully, but one thing you can do is on that 40 cent of a difference, that a government can make a decision on that to help the ordinary public that's out there, because it's them that's going to pay at the end of the day.
Minister, conclude.
Thank you, Deputy. And just first of all to say that I will be continuing to engage, as I have since I came into this role, with the sector to ensure that we are protecting them and working with my government colleagues, because this is not just a transport issue. For example, the Minister of Finance sets policy in relation to tax and excise duties on fuel, and the only increase this year was the planned carbon tax increase. What I will be doing is engaging with them that 10-year haulage strategy, which is the vision. We need to be setting out that long-term plan, as well as working on what I have stated earlier in relation to the immediate concerns for the sector, ensuring that we have a robust supply chain, ensuring we have the skill set, working with our educational centres, be it through skills for HGV drivers, be it through research in the area of reducing emissions, ensuring that we have vehicles and I suppose the technology available. Some of it is more longer term, but we are working on both short, medium and longer term views. But I share your frustration and people's, I suppose, questions about the ambition, but this is a global climate challenge, and we have to rise to that challenge and try and work with sectors to try and make sure that it's fair and it's achievable.
Thank you, Minister. I'll turn to question 88 in the name of Deputy Brian Levin.
Thank you, Cahill. I wish to ask the Minister her plans for developing a strategic framework for the development of sustainable transport modes, and if she will make a statement on the matter, please.
This is oral question. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think we skipped a question. That's okay. That's fine. Thank you, Deputy, for your question. I can inform the Deputy that Minister Ryan aims to publish the Sustainable Mobility Policy Framework before the end of this year. This will set out a strategic framework to 2030 for walking, cycling and public transport to support Ireland's overall requirement to achieve a 51% reduction in carbon emissions by the end of this decade. The framework will primarily focus on measures to promote and facilitate active travel and public transport for all, and in so doing encourage less private car use nationally nationally to support our climate commitment. The Climate Action Plan 2021 sets out additional measures to promote other complementary transport mitigation measures, such as the switch to electric car use and greater use of renewable transport fuels. A collaborative approach has been taken by the Department in developing the Sustainable Mobility Policy Framework through public consultation and extensive stakeholder engagement, and it will set out a comprehensive set of actions to increase active travel infrastructure provision and improve public transport capacity and services right across the country. These will be supported by behavioural change and demand management measures to make sustainable modes the preferred choice for as many people as possible. Transport needs are not uniform across the country, and we recognise that tailored solutions will be needed for both urban and rural areas. The new framework will be underpinned by funding in the National Development Plan, which provides €35 billion for transport over the next decade. This will enable significant investment in active travel, bus and rail infrastructure, and expand sustainable mobility options in our cities, towns and villages. This will be complemented by the expanded public transport services throughout the country, as supported by the Public Service Obligation Programme. So the target of the policy framework will be to cater for daily travel needs in a more sustainable manner and deliver an additional 500,000 active daily travel and public transport journeys by 2030.